us by Zoom, or you're looking on Facebook Live. I thank God for you being with us. And for those who have not realized it, for the past several weeks, to actually the past month, we have been dealing with and been in a series dealing with families. All right, because there are so many times now, as far as it relates to families, where we have to say power in the church when we are amongst the people of God, but when we go home, we have absolutely no power. It's two totally different ways of living, two totally different lives. It's almost as if we are living like a 007, like we're a secret agent. Because in church, we're sitting up there praising God, speaking in tongues, prophesying, getting hands laid on, and, all that stuff is going on in church. But then all of a sudden, once we step out of those doors and we get home, it's like the total opposite happens. All right. We don't know how to pray. We don't know how to call on the name of the Lord. We don't know how to lift him up. We don't know how to bind any demons. We don't know how to do any of that stuff when we get home. But while we are in church amongst everybody else, oh yeah, we a powerhouse. All right. We calling down fire just like they did. And we just sitting up there calling on fire, casting out all kinds of demons, taking them on. But when we get home, it's something totally different. And it's kind of strange that there's such a disconnect between how we act in church and how we act at home. And one of the things that I continue to remind us is that the way we act at home is the same way we need to act at church. And the same way we act at church is the same way we need to act at home. There should not be any difference between our private persona and our public persona. There should not be any significant difference, because the people that see us at home, they really see the real us to a certain degree. Because when we come to church, there's a certain facade, all right, or a certain mask that we go and we put on because we're amongst the people of God, and we are holy and we are righteous and we are faithful and we, have all of this stuff and we know how to glory to God and do all that stuff, knowing good and well that there ain't no power in any of that, because we're doing a dog and pony show because we're amongst everybody else in the house of God. And so what happens is it ends up not only hurting us, but it ends up hurting our family, because our family ends up saying, it's like, hold up, how in the world can you sit up there and act like that at home, but then all of a sudden go to church and you act in some other kind of way? And it's like, and then what makes it bad is when they call us on it, then we the ones that catch an attitude. All right, we the ones that get upset. And it's like, no, baby, no brother, no sister, don't catch an attitude. Don't get upset. You were the one that was acting one way, and they just calling your bluff. They just calling you on your stuff. And you just have to say, you know what? Let me just be honest with you and just let you realize that what goes on in the front is not always what goes on in the back. What goes on in the pulpit is not what always goes on at home. All right. And when we are truthful and when we are honest about that, that's what people, all right, are looking to see. That's what will draw people unto God. That's what will bring souls in, because we don't have the persona, all right, that we are a super saint, all right, or we don't have the persona that our stuff don't stink, all right, or we don't have the persona that we never did anything wrong, all right, because I always find it interesting how people can crucify somebody for something that they did, but when it comes down to something, that they have done personally, oh, they want all the forgiveness, they want all the grace, they want all the mercy, they want all the understanding. But then when it's somebody else, it's like crucify them, plug them up, all right, pastor, call them on the carpet, silence them, take away their license, demote them, do everything, excommunicate them from the church, put their name on blast, put them on all over social media, have them to be the talk of the barbershop, have them be the talk of the beauty salon, and even people that don't even know anything about the situation, they end up finding out all about it. Because all we want to do is turn around and ruin, to a certain degree, their life But when it's us, when the shoe is on the other foot and it's us, we be like, oh, this is a private matter. This is a private situation. Don't need to be in the public. Don't need for nobody. Baby, listen, let me tell you something. That's why the lesson on tonight, as a continuation from last week, is entitled Not So Brady Bunch. Because not every family, all right, and these were TV families, all right, not every family is perfect in front or behind closed doors. None of them at all. Every single family has its problems. Every single family has its hiccups. Every single family, no matter who they are, no matter how anointed, no matter how, put it this way, no matter how anointed they are, there's a problem. There is a problem. No matter what, there is an issue. There is a problem. Because we were coming from Genesis chapter number 37, verses 23 through 25 and verse 27. I'm going to read it to you. All right. And it's going to come up on the screen. And it came to pass when Joseph was come unto his brethren, that they stripped Joseph out of his coat of many colors that was on him. And they took him and cast him into a pit. And the pit was empty. There was no water in it. Verse 25, and they sat down to eat bread, and they lifted up their eyes and looked, and behold, a company of Ishmaelites came from Gilead with their camels, bearing spicery and balm and myrrh, going to carry it down to Egypt. Verse 27, and it reads, come and let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hand be upon him, for he is our brother and our flesh. And his brethren were content. Because what had happened previously was they got tired of Joseph. They got tired of Joseph. They got tired of him running his mouth. They got tired of him saying this, that, and the other. And they were like, yo, we're going to do something to him. We're going to do something to him. We're going to get rid of him. There's something that we got to scare him. We got to do something to this brother, because he's sitting up there having these dreams. He's sitting up there doing this, and he's sitting up there saying that. That's why sometimes, let me advise us, that's why sometimes it is important that we keep some stuff to ourselves. All right. It is imperative, important that sometimes we keep some of this stuff to ourselves, because sometimes other people don't understand what God is about to do. All right. Besides that, they will end up talking against it. All right. And they will try to work against it. All right. So we don't need to sit up there and tell every single thing, all right, that God is about to do, or everything that God has already told us that he's already put in place, because sometimes those people pat you on the back, but then next thing you know, they're pulling out a knife and stabbing you in the chest, because they don't want to see it come to pass. They don't want to see you work. They don't want to see you succeed. They have every single thing. They're doing every single thing to cause you to miss out on what God has intended for you. And they don't want to see it happen. So that's why it's important that you ask God. It's like, Lord, should I share this? If I share it, who should I share it with? All right. And if I share it with them, how much am I supposed to share with them? Because you know what? They may be close, but they may not be that close. All right. So there's sometimes some things you have to keep close to the vest. You have to keep it close to your heart until it gets to the place where it is so far, okay, so far in the planning stage, and it's so far moving ahead, all right, that there's nothing that anybody can do that can stop it. Because if you, let me put it this way, if you say it when it's just a thought, then there's going to be people that's going to do what they can to try to stop the thought. That's what they're going to do. They're going to try to do what they can to stop the thought. They're going to do what they can to try to discourage you. all right, to try to say, well, you know, you don't need to necessarily do that. You don't need to necessarily do this. There's too many, you know, why you want to do that? Have you ever gotten to the place, and I know we ain't get to it yet, but have you ever gotten to the place where there's sometimes where you don't want to share anything with anybody because, or you don't want to share something with a certain person because everything that come out of their mouth is negative? I mean, those types of people, it's like, can you ever say something positive? No matter what the situation, can you say something positive? Can you see something positive in the situation? But every time they open up their mouth, they got something negative. Well, I don't know how that's going to happen. I don't know how that's going to work out. Well, you know what? We don't need to go to everything. Well, we don't need to show up to everything. Why you got to say all this? Why? You know what? The reason why I got to say it, the reason why I got to do it is because there's somebody that needs my help. We are supposed to be helpers of one another. So there's somebody that needs my help, that needs my attention, that needs the words that's coming out of my mouth. And so that's why it's important, as we established on last week, that, which is our first point, is that we pull off our own covers. We stated on last week. We just doing a quick recap. We pull off our own covers. And you expose, all right, with the leading of the Holy Spirit, you expose yourself. And you lay it, and even put it this way, you don't even expose yourself to other people. You expose yourself to God and let God do the work. And God will show you or tell you, all right, who, all right, you can be accountable to. Because we're not, let me even make it plain. Every leader is not a leader that we can be accountable to. Because some of them are wolves in sheep's clothing. They are bucking and jerking and all that other stuff. But all they're doing is they just want to get all the business. They just want to get all the information. And God will let us know who to share our information with, because we're not supposed to share it with everybody. Because God will create, all right, a safe haven for us to be able to share whatever it is that we're supposed to be sharing. And we expose it ourselves. Because sometimes in exposing it, especially if that leader is not led by God and does not have their ear to the mouth of God, they will end up making, all right, a private matter public and end up causing more damage than good. And so that's why with a family, all right, we have to look at it. We have to look at it, because one of the questions that we had last week, and we're not going to revisit it, but is it true or false? All right. Every family in the world is dysfunctional. And what we have to realize is that is a true statement, because every family in the world is dysfunctional. It's just that some families or some people are better at hiding it than others. When others want to say, well, let me go ahead and expose myself. All right, let me show, all right, what I have been through, what I did, because I need to be accountable to somebody. All right, because there's something that happened in my life. And so I need to be healed of this. I need to be held accountable of this, because there's going to be somebody that's going to come into the ministry, or somebody I'm going to come into contact with that may end up needing this. So I got to get free of whatever this is, so that when the time comes, I'm not sitting up there trying to hide the skeletons that's in my closet. I can let them bones out. I can let it all out, and I won't have any shame whatsoever. I will be free of it, and no one can hold me down, and no one can hold me back. And it will allow others to be able to identify with us. Because like I stated before, for some of us, some people see us in our now, but they don't know our then. They don't know how we was turning it up and turning it out, all right, in the club. They don't know how we was doing everything that we was doing out there in the streets. because they see us now refined. They see us now quoting scripture. They see us now casting out demons. They see us now believing God like never before. But they ain't know when we were sitting up there dropping it like it's hot and sitting up there backing it up on every single guy that we could back it up on and every single girl that we can hop on, we was hopping on them. They ain't know all about all that. But thank God he delivers. Praise the Lord, he delivers. And God will allow all of that to be a testimony to somebody else, to draw them and say, listen, I was singing in the choir on Sunday morning, but I was at the Red Roof Inn Saturday night. And then on Friday night, I was at the Oasis. So I had the Oasis on Friday night. I was at the Red Roof on Saturday night, but then I was in the house of the Lord singing in the choir Sunday morning. And still trying to fool everybody, but I couldn't fool God. And there came a point in time when God arrested me. When God arrested me, because God is working on each and every one of us. He is working on our imperfections. That's why it's important that we just let God do the work. So with that much being stated, I done almost went for a whole half hour. Lord Jesus, I got the first question. All right. And I'm going to need y'all to come up off of mute. All right. And the first question is this. Is there ever a time when a secret needs to be kept a secret? Is there ever a time when a secret needs to be kept a secret? And I need you to support your answer, because there's two other companion questions that go along with it. And I know we might jump into it, but let's go ahead. All right. Somebody come off of mute and answer this question for me. Is there ever a time when a secret needs to be kept a secret? And I need you to support your answer.
Well, if it's not detrimental to the person, like, for example, if someone's trying to propose and he shares that secret to his friend and tell him, don't say nothing. I mean, that is a secret that is going to benefit him and his partner. So we're not talking about secrets that will cause harm, but if it's a secret, like you're going to do a surprise birthday party for someone and you don't want that to be told, then yeah, I mean, that secret can be held. But if it's something that's going to cause harm to the person, to their life, or to someone else, then no.
And in that we talk about, like, and that's a good illustration, a good example. But you also look at, family secrets too, and just broaden the question. All right, somebody else.
I think sometimes secrets are, I'm going to use my own self since your introduction. I had a child before I got married, and the man I married was not that child's father. But she was 3 years old when I married him, so I couldn't tell her at 3 years old. So I had to wait. I think Hope was about maybe 12 or 13, somewhere in that age. I can't remember. And then I told her everything, what happened. So yeah, went from that until I told her, and it's never a good time. You just got to do it because it's got to be told at some point. So at that time, I think it was okay to keep the secret until you realize that the child, you hoping that they're old enough to receive it and understand it. But I think a lot of people, is such a difficult thing that they keep it for, like I kept it for 13 years, and they just keep going with it and forget about it, And then when the child is grown, you should have told before. But yes, if it's a young child and you feel like they're not old enough to handle it, yes. But these kids today, Pastor, they be 2 years old. That one, my father, your daddy, and this my daddy. But back in my day, we didn't do that. We didn't. Kids didn't do. Yeah. But I think I want to say it depends on the situation, and if there's children involved, I think yes, but don't just keep it and let it go. At some point, you got to lay it out there. And I always use the phrase as a mother. Me, it's like you got to get naked before your kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's hard. That's a
Yeah.
hard thing to do. That's a hard thing to do. So yes, I think if it's appropriate at a time, yes, it's okay to keep it.
Okay. All right. Anyone else?
Also, if it's a family secret, since we're talking about families, I don't think it's good to keep any secrets because sooner or later it may come out, and it would have been best to just tell it instead of a person trying to find out, or a person dying with that secret, and that other, like a child never knowing that person wasn't their father or mother, and that person dying with that secret and never knowing that part of their heritage or their family. So keeping secrets, I don't think you should. It's going to be hard. It's going to hurt to be truthful, but it's better to be truthful than to be deceiving. Deceiving causes a lot of dis-ease in a family. And I don't think it's wise to keep any secret from anybody.
And I love it because we're all hedging tentatively towards the next part of the lesson. So I love it. I love it. I love it. Anyone else? Anyone else? I'm just ready to jump through the screen. Anyone else? All right. I'll move on to the next question, and I'll keep myself reserved for the moment. Now, the next question even kind of makes it a little bit tighter, because the next question is, what are some reasons why we should break confidentiality? And let me add the second question to that, which is our second part. Should we let the person know up front that confidentiality may be broken? All right. So the first question is, what are some reasons why we should break confidentiality? But the second question to that is, should we let the person know up front that confidentiality may be broken? So someone come off of mute and let's deal with this one, because this one done made it nice and tight.
Well, I know for me, if someone is telling me a secret, I always tell them, even when I'm dealing with young people, that if it's going to hurt you, your family, cause harm to yourself, trust and believe I'm not holding no secrets. I tell them up front, whatever you're saying, if your mother don't know, like, confidentiality will be broken. And it leaves, and what happens is it leaves a nice transparent plate, so the person will understand that if they're saying something that will cause them harm or do damage to themselves or their family, that you're going to tell. Like, secrets are not, well, dealing with young people, I don't keep secrets like that because it makes a tear in family. So I let them know up front. So you have a choice whether to tell me or not, but no, I'm going to tell. I'm not going to hold anything. It's coming out. And you can make that choice, and it makes me feel good and clear conscious in my mind that I'm not, God forbid if I held a secret and something happened to them and I did not tell.
Yes, say that
So
again.
to be, and then they respect you more knowing that you're going to say something. And sometimes they tell you the secret because they know you're going to tell. Sometimes they can't tell it. So they would rather go to somebody who they know will tell because they know your standard, and they're praying that you will tell to help bring them out of that. So you have people who look for people like that who are not afraid to tell because they themselves don't know how to break the silence, but they know you will on behalf of them.
Right. And they just can't figure out. They've been praying about it, they've been contemplating it, and they can't even get the words together. Or if not that, they are so scared, and they could be literally terrified because they don't know the reaction that they will get. But if it's an adult to an adult, the reaction may, and then especially alluding and expanding it, we could go into prayer if we are the ones that is exposing it. I don't want to continue, but I want to let someone else come up off of mute. All right, because the question is, should we let the person know up front that confidentiality may be broken? And also besides that, what are some of the reasons why, all right, we should break confidentiality? Anyone else have a thought on it?
If it deals with their health, their mental state, and bodily harm, things of that nature that is damaging to them, those things are reasons why you should tell. If they robbed the bank, stole some money, did something like the police are going to be coming after them and coming to your home, you should tell. Like, but there are things like, seriously, on a serious note, things that will really cause harm, that are harmful.
Yeah. We should definitely let them know up front that depending on what you say, all right, going forward, I may end up having to let them know. So you end up having to, judge whether or not you want to actually tell me. All right, because I'm gonna let you know up front. It's like, listen, we are not the Brady Bunch. All right, we are not the Huxtables. All right, all of our family problems do not get solved in the half-hour show. All our family problems do not get solved in an hour show. That just does not happen, because the lies and the deceit, all right, is what's tearing apart, all right, this family. All right. Does anyone else have something that they want to say or something that they want to add?
Yes, I do. I would say too, like Minister TT was saying, if it's detrimental to them to tell it. But if I had a young person come to me and said something in confidentiality, and knowing that I'm going to tell them I'm going to say something to the parent, I would go to the parent and tell them, but I'm saying I'm coming to you because they didn't want to tell you. I'm coming to you in confidentially. But I want to make sure the parent, because I tell you this.
Go for it. Go for it.
I don't want to, I don't know if I'm going in your direction or not, but I would tell the parent, but don't go and jump on them.
I knew that's where he was going.
That's why
go for it.
Because you can tell the parent, because it's serious.
Come on.
But, I tell you, Omar did something. All of a sudden you go, I heard you say, how come you don't? No. Come to them correct. Come to them calm. Now that you know the secret, God will show you how to deal with it, and you work it out. God will show you how to work it out. Okay, Omar, what happened today? You know how to talk to them, and your children, your children, and they're truthful. They come out and sometimes they'll tell you anyway. You know how your kids are. They'll tell you anyway, but it's to, to say, you don't want them to, oh, golly, I should have kept that to myself. I told Miss Jen in the conference, I know she was going to tell, but golly, I got to come home. And now my mom is jumping on me. She don't even know the real deal. She don't know what I'm going through. She don't know that I'm hurting. I'm glad Miss Janet told it, but God, now I got to go through this. I should have kept it to myself for real. So you got to tell the parents, okay, I'm coming to you. Shirley told me the secret. She told me to keep it confidential. I can't. So I'm telling you what she did and how she's feeling. So now you handle it as a mother, but go lovingly. Don't go jump on her. Oh, Miss Jenny came and told me. No, God will show you how to deal with that. If you're saved, you calm yourself down and come correct. They deserve respect, and you know what I'm saying. Kids deserve respect too, and just don't jump on them, because then they'll never tell. And then when they're going through really something, now they'll feel like, who can I tell?
Exactly.
Now I really can't trust nobody, because I know Miss Janet was going to tell it, because it's it's going to help me. But I got to go home, and now my mother's jumping on me, maybe punching me, cussing at me. Why? I didn't ask for all of this. I just wanted somebody to understand where I was coming from.
Exactly.
So it got to
wisdom.
Right.
Yeah, and like Miss Janet said, that's where healing comes into play, and you can partner with the parent. And like Miss Janet is talking about, and like you talked about too, and you let the Lord lead you on how to even address the parent, because that's true, Miss Janet. Things like that can happen, and you can sit there and partner and pray together, and even show that you don't have to react, but respond with wisdom and godly guidance.
Right. Yeah. Because you don't need to get them in trouble like that. You don't want to get them
Yeah.
in trouble.
Because you don't want to get in trouble like that.
No, no.
And then besides
Yep.
that, you can also pull from your own,
Yep.
all right, mistakes
Yep.
of reacting the way that they are initially wanting to react, because they want to jump on them, like you're alluding to, Mom, with everything, just all energy, just jump on. All the feet, they just got it all. They like pulling the feet out of everything. They just like, they just want to jump on them with, and it's like, no, and you let them know, it's like, I did that before.
Right.
And my child shut down on me. And I've never, and what makes it bad is, especially with the children now, with this generation now, sometimes when they shut down, you won't even hear from them ever again.
You can't get them back.
Exactly.
You can't get them
And
back.
sometimes what'll make it really bad is the way that you will get them back is when you see them in the casket, or you are in a crisis because they tried to commit suicide and it failed, because we jumped on them and we did not hear, all right, and we did not listen to sound guidance from somebody that's already been through it, and somebody that's already experienced it, and somebody that's dealing with it already. That's why we got to have wisdom as to how to react to the situation and how we can act so that it's not detrimental to the relationship, because we really want to build the relationship. We really want to build their confidence. All right. We also really want to build the bridge so that they know that, listen, hold up. I went and told my mother this, or I went and told my father that, or I went and told this person, and they were the mediator. And they helped bridge the gap. All right. So that now I can talk to my mother. Now I can talk to my father without fear of repercussion.
And that also goes with leaders in church too, Pastor, what you're talking about, which is a great example, having a confidence, like you're saying, even as members being able to go to our leaders and share some things and not feeling jumped on, but having a space where we know that we have that trust to be rebuilt.
Come on now. Because for too many times and in too many churches, that's why we end up having people leave the church, because there wasn't a safe haven, all right, created, all right, so that the hurt and the issue could be dealt with. Yes, sometimes it's, yes, we're going to end up having our issues. We're going to have our problems. All have sinned and come short of the glory of God, saved or unsaved. But it depends on how we act and react as leaders to what we end up finding out will determine sometimes whether or not the person will say, will I stay or will I go? That's how it goes. Because sometimes depending on what happens, all right, it not only affects them, but it affects other people, all right, around them, or other people that find out. Because as saints of God, we all know, saints of God, we know that we talk. We know that we talk and we get information, and we, have our own little clicks, our own little clacks, clickety clacks, all that stuff, have our own little miniature churches inside of churches. And then we start talking and thinking we know better, this, that, and the other. Yeah. And it becomes a hot, funky dumpster fire mess. That's what it becomes.
Oh, God.
Because we are trying to hold on to secrets. And one of the things that I want to tell us, well, actually, let me back it up. Does anybody else have something that they want to share?
Yeah, I'll say something. I say that, when you telling the truth or revealing secrets, it has a positive and a negative effect. A lot of times, the person who is telling the truth or the person who is telling the secrets, they need to receive that positive effect because they need to get healed.
Mm-hmm.
That person doesn't realize, or it doesn't even come into their mind that even though they may get healed because they told the secret and something was done about it, the negative effect comes in on the other side. And for an example, your uncle molests you. Even though you go to your parents and you tell your parents what happens, and your parents do something about the situation, you receive that healing because your parents believed you and your parents addressed the situation. But now the negative effect is on your parents because your parents lost the relationship from a brother that they may not be able to completely forgive. And even if they do forgive, that's a relationship that would never be mended ever again. And it is on the side of your uncle who made that initial attack on you, but it's still a negative effect that your parents have to deal with anyhow. So when we looking at telling truths, why don't we tell truth? Even though we know telling the truth should always be foremost everything. But telling the truth also brings negative effects right then and there.
Yeah.
If I can postpone telling the truth, I can postpone the negative effect. If the truth never comes through, never comes forth, well, then the negative effect never comes forth. And I believe, like Mother Shula was talking about,
Yep.
her child being young. Well, if no situation ever came about where the child needed bone marrow from the parents or needed a blood transfusion from the parents, and they found out that, hey, my father can't give it to me because he's not a match, she may have gone her whole entire life never having to know that her father wasn't her biological father, because nothing never happened to actually push you to that negative end that they needed to know that they're being raised by a person that's not their blood at all. Some situations don't warrant certain secrets to be told, whereas other situation does. But understand, there's a positive and a negative outcome that's going to come no matter what you do, no matter what you have. Some kids can't talk to their parents. It's just not going to happen. Why? Because there's going to be an outcome that's going to happen when they talk to their parents. It doesn't. They can even know that it's going to be an outcome, but they don't want the outcome. But they still want to get certain things off their chest, so they'll talk to somebody else. But trust and believe, like Mother Janet was saying, trust and believe. They're not looking for you to go to their parents and tell their parents because they told you. And it's like she was saying, parents, don't jump down their throat if I had to come to you and tell these secrets because it is detrimental, but the good and positive that comes from it, that person, you told that person secret to their parents. Their parents have to deal with them. That person might not never trust you again. Your conscience is safe because you told the secret, but now that person deems you untrustworthy because you told their secret, because they confided in you. So yes, I believe if you're going to let somebody confide in you, you do need to tell them up front that if it is detrimental, you will spill it, giving them the choice not to tell you. But that's the problem in itself. We don't give people the choice not to do something because we don't tell them the truth before we do it. And that's where trying to tell the truth or trying to tell those secrets have those negative effects, even when you're positively trying to get healed and trying to get delivered, because there's an outcome that comes from it, and it's good or bad. It's good for the person that's trying to get free of it. It's bad because now we have to deal with it, and there's going to be some strings that get cut. There's going to be some relationships that get cut. There are going to be some things that's not going to be the same anymore. So some people are even fearful because they understand this. The secret may have been there for a long time. They may have even witnessed the person change over a period of time while they're still keeping the secret. But they're still hurting because the secret is still what will happen will still happen to them, and they're still keeping the secret. You know, I witnessed somebody go to a funeral of their step grandfather, never telling the secret that the step grandfather molested her. And she cried at the funeral, and the people at the funeral believed that she was crying tears of joy, but she was crying tears that she never ever got to tell people her secret. And she's at a funeral where people are praising somebody that molested her.
Let me add on to that. I've seen some where you go to a funeral and you end up finding out that the good saintly mother of the church, and I mean the saintly mother of the church, that has everything going on correctly. She wears her chapel cap correctly. She has her skirt down correctly. She is dressed to the nine every Sunday. She gives God all of the glory, God all of the honor, and God all of the praise. And can't nobody do her like her Savior, Jesus, the Christ, the Lord, the soon coming King, the eternal Father. But when you get to that obituary, when that woman is cold and dead, you end up finding out that she has 6 kids by 5 different men. Literally, but she was crucifying and vilifying every other woman that came in the church and told them they ain't nothing but old nasty, fresh hussy. But she was the one that kept the secret and didn't let everybody know. But the sad part about it was she could have witnessed to all them other ones, instead of belittling them and making them feel like garbage. She could have let them know, I got a couple kids out there that I don't even know where they at because I gave them up for adoption. My mother sent me down south. I came back, but the kid didn't come back, because we know back in them days, when you popped up pregnant, oh, they just went to go visit their grandmother. They'll be back. 9 months later, you'd be like, hey, how you doing? You're like, I'm all right. I just came back from. And that's one of the bad things that would happen in the church back in the day. And that's why it's detrimental to keep the secrets. But we also, as you have pointed out, Minister Lionel, we also have to realize that there is a cause and effect. There is sometimes a good outcome and sometimes a bad outcome, or sometimes both. But if God is in it, then God will control the whole narrative. Let me go political for 1 second. This is why they are trying to keep the truth about January 6th hidden, because they don't want anybody to find out what was really going on behind closed doors. They don't want anybody to know the truth of how there was possibly some senators and some congressmen that had their hand in on, the insurrection, because they want to keep their seat of power, and they don't want to be exposed. But our second point is this. It comes from an old song from the 80s. Tell me lies, tell me sweet little lies. Tell me lies. I told you I love my old school songs. That's our second point. And that's what's going to happen. Some people are going to tell lies, and they're going to call it a sweet little lie that is not going to hurt anybody. It's not going to damage anybody. They're going to keep the secret. They're going to keep the lie a lie. Let the lie be a lie. But let me go back to the word of God. As we were looking at in Genesis chapter number 37, I'm going to read verses 32 to 35. And it reads on this wise: and they sent the coat of many colors, and they brought it to their father. All right. And their father was Jacob, and said, this have we found. Now, or know now, whether it be thy son's coat or no. And he knew it All right. And Jacob knew it and said, it is my son's coat. An evil beast hath devoured him. Joseph is without doubt rent in pieces. And look at this part. And Jacob rent his clothes and put sackcloth upon his own loins and mourned for his son many days. And all his sons and all his daughters rose to comfort him. Look at this, rose to comfort him, but he, meaning Jacob, refused to be comforted. And he said, for I will go down into the grave unto my son's mourning. Thus his father wept for him. His father Jacob wept all the rest of his life until he saw Joseph. Now, think about it in this way. Imagine the physical, mental, and emotional pain Jacob's sons caused him by not telling him the truth. Think about the pain that was going on in Jacob because of their lies. Think about the pain that they were going through because they saw and felt the pain that their father was going through. There is nothing like hearing the wail of a parent when they lost their child. It's one that just grabs you and you're just like, you can feel the pain from the wailing. You can feel the pain of the crying because they're like, I can't believe. And for them to continue to keep the lie going. Tell me lies, tell me secret lies. Imagine how Jacob continued to beat himself up day after day, month after month, year after year. Imagine, let's take it and look at it another way. Imagine how Jacob's body probably started to break down, not only because his hip was out of place, but started to break down because of the guilt that he had on him because of the lies that he was told. Lies, secrets, and deceit is never good, especially when the lie and or secret that is being kept is causing damage. It's never any good, not at all. Because sometimes you think about it in this way. Sometimes people have heart attacks. Sometimes people have strokes, all right, because they are holding on to a secret. Some people end up with physical damage and the doctor can't even trace where the damage or how the damage started because there's no way to trace it. And I can tell you that you can trace it all the way back to the lie that they were told or the lie that they're trying to keep. And so you end up thinking about all of this that was going on in Jacob and all of this that was weighing on him, pulling him down, making him feel like, man, I failed. Listen, how many times as parents have we had our child come to us and tell us something? And after we dealt with the situation, we got to have God deal with us because we feel like we have failed as a parent. How in the world can we sit up there and say, God, I need you to, we done minister to our child. And everything's straight with them. And we go into our bedroom and we fall out across the bed because we're like, how did I not see this? How did I not understand this? Why did I not see this? Did I not pray enough? Was my eyes wide open, but I couldn't see? I didn't see the signs. What's going on? And God has to in turn minister to us because we end up beating ourselves up And imagine Jacob sitting up there, think about it. Imagine Jacob sitting up there beating himself up because Jacob was the one that sent Joseph. He was the one that said, Joseph, I need you to go to your brothers and do such and such and such and such. Paraphrasing. And they said, just imagine. And he could be sitting there saying, if I would have never sent him, he would still be here.
Pastor, that's part of the grief.
Go ahead.
That's part of the grief process is, you know, a bargain for time, think I did the wrong thing, and what could I have done better? And it just, having lost a child, I know what I'm talking about. It just eats you, it just eats your heart out, you know, what could I have done? And some things is just out of our control. You know,
say that
we
again.
couldn't have done anything. But like you said, it takes God to minister to you. And that some people in the grief process, they end up having a heart attack and die. They don't make it through. They don't make it through.
Because it's weighing on them so heavily. I mean, because imagine, you think about it, you got somebody that's 40 years old, but they look like they're 60. All right. Somebody that's 50 years old, but they look like they're 80. And it's because they have a secret, or they have been told something that is a lie. And it is weighing on them, and it's weighing on their heart. And as Mother Shula said, cause them to have a heart attack, cause them to die themselves, because they can't get over it. They can't handle it. They can't put two and two together, no matter what's going on. But I serve a God, and I know God can heal. I know God can pull you through. I know God can pull you out. He can work on you and have you to make it through and make it out, all right, so that you can testify to somebody else, telling them that I was on the brink, all right, of committing suicide. I was on the brink of having a heart attack, having a stroke, but God stepped in and he regulated my mind. He regulated my spirit, and not putting it down, all right, or diminishing it, but we could turn around and say, I didn't even have to go see a physical therapist, because I went and sought God, and God was my therapist. Now, let me put this in there. Some people do need to go see a therapist, because that's just what you need to do. I'm not putting it down. I'm not saying anything against it. I'm just saying that some people do, because that helps them. God puts these things in place to help us. There is nothing wrong with going and seeing a therapist. Not at all. Because the therapist, especially when they are a saved, sanctified, Holy Ghost filled, fire baptized with the evidence of speaking in tongues, therapist that can help you with your issue. Because some of us have an issue talking to people that we know, but we can go and spill all the beans and the coffee and everything else to somebody that we don't know. Because why? We can just go blah, 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 and just let it all out. And they can help and deal with that situation. But if we continue to hold on to the lie, and we continue, all right, to keep the secret, then it's going to be detrimental. It's detrimental to our family. It's detrimental to us. Because let me read this. Sometimes the lie that is trying to be kept a lie turns out to do damage to the person that really wants the truth. Sometimes the lie that is trying to be kept actually turns out to do damage to the person that really wants the truth. Let me continue to read on. They are hurt because they want to know, but also when and if, all right, they find out the truth, they will be hurt again. And, all right, there will be the possibility of a wound being opened again. So it's a double hurt is what I'm describing. They are hurt because, number one, you had the information and you didn't share it. Then they're hurt another time because now you done shared the information with them. So now they're hurt because of that. And that's why it goes back to what Mother Shula has said at the beginning and what we have already established over the past 2 weeks is that you have to wait and ask God, when is it time to share? But you also have to realize that there may be a good and bad outcome of it. But you got to say, Lord, you got to work this thing out. Because if you don't work this thing out, it's going to be a hot dumpster fire of a mess. It's going to be a hot mess because you know what? It ain't going to get fixed in no half hour or an hour like the Brady Bunch or like the Huxtables or like Family Matters. It ain't going to get fixed in no half hour. Nah, that ain't going to happen. This is going to take some years. This is going to take some prayer. This is going to take some fasting. This is going to take some oil. This is going to take, and let me even tell us this. Just because we have a come to Jesus moment and everybody at the altar sitting up there snotting and crying and all that other stuff at the altar, don't think that it's going to be fixed at that particular moment. Because there is still some conversations that need to be had behind closed doors so that things can be aired out. At the altar is where it can get started. And at the altar is where it can end. But you got to realize that between the first time at the altar and the second time at the altar, there's some work that has to be done. There has to be some conversations had at that particular moment in time. Now, let me end with this. Unless somebody else has something that they want to say or something that they want to add. For some people, all right, or some people end up in situations. People end up in situations because they were told a lie. All right. And it needed to be exposed, but it was not exposed. All right. They needed to know the truth of the situation. They needed to know who's my daddy, who's my mama. All right. They needed to know what's this family secret. They needed to know it because it would help settle them. But because they were not told whatever it is, and they said, oh, you too young, you too this, you too that, they end up acting out. They end up on drugs. They end up drinking, any number of things. They end up doing all of that and then some. They end up sexually active. I mean, all types of stuff end up happening. And the reason why it ends up happening is because they were not told the truth. And since they were not told the truth, and they were hurting and they were yearning for whatever the truth was, they end up acting out. So what am I saying? And why am I saying not so Brady Bunch? I just repeat myself again, because sometimes in our families, in our situations, what we go through cannot be fixed in a half hour or an hour sitcom. And we have to ask God and seek God as to when, as to where, and how much to share. Because the lie, the secrets, the deceit is actually tearing down and pulling apart the family. And as we can see here with Jacob, that it caused physical damage on Jacob, mental damage on Jacob, emotional damage on Jacob, because the children knew the truth, but didn't tell him the truth. Didn't tell him the truth. And they kept the secret. But it was not only detrimental to Jacob, but it was detrimental to the others, to all of his brothers, because they had to keep the lie alive. They had to keep the lie alive. Now, does anyone have something that they want to say, or a question or anything like that before we close this out? Or a point?
I have a point, Pastor.
Uh-huh.
So I'll start with, for all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. Basically just stating that none of us is perfect. All of us is going to make a decision. We're going to do something that's going to cause a conflict. The problem that we have with conflict is a lot of times we receive the negative aspect of it, but we never get any positive reinforcements. So when you keep receiving negative aspects of stuff, it'll tend to cause you to start hiding it so you don't feel that burden and that pain. When we deal with Jacob and his family, the boys before Joseph knows that Joseph is Jacob's favorite son. Why? Because they found out that Jacob didn't want to marry Leah, their mother, that Jacob wanted Rachel. And because Rachel was his favorite, Rachel was the one that he wanted. And when Rachel finally was able to have children, he doted on the firstborn son of Rachel at the detriment of the rest of his kids. When the boys went away, he would send Joseph to keep tabs on them. As parents, we don't even understand how we cause how we cause decision with our children by sending one to look after the other, because we know this one is going to get in trouble and this one is going to tell it. You're going to cause that child to fall out with their siblings because you're sending them to tattletale on them. That's the whole reason why you're sending them. So you are already causing pain, regardless of your reason. You are causing pain between those siblings by doing that. So by Jacob sending Joseph to keep tabs on his brother and to bring back the information on his brother, the brothers couldn't receive Joseph's prophecy. The brothers couldn't receive Joseph because Joseph was getting all the favor. Joseph was getting everything. They was being ignored, and they were the older brothers. Then we get down to the fact that they decided to turn on Joseph and then not tell the father the truth. Okay, now they don't tell the father the truth. Why? Because their hatred for Joseph rose to a point so high, and their father is at the center of it. That they rose so high that they turned against their brother and they sold their brother into slavery, hoping to never see the brother ever again. They expected that their father at some point would get over it, but he never did. Not until Joseph was discovered. But once that lie has been told, and once we have kept it for so many years, there's no way to untell it without even more damages, like you're saying. Okay, so they finally tell Jacob because they realize Jacob has sold his heart away. They lost their father because their father still didn't give them what they wanted because he just shut down the rest of their life. Now they tell Jacob. So now not only did they turn against their brother, they sold their brother into slavery, they lied to their father, they caused their father to shut down. Now they got to deal with the punishment that they're going to receive if they actually told their father that they was the one who sold him into slavery. It would be easier just to let Jacob think that Joseph was just taken away or he was killed. But yet he didn't. And over time, we find out that now we have to deal with this situation because this situation came front and center because they had to go to Egypt because there was a famine that came in the land of Canaan.
Mm-hmm.
Without Canaan having that famine, they wouldn't have never met Joseph again.
Yeah.
Joseph probably would have lived and died the whole time in Egypt, and Jacob would have never met his son ever again. The damage still would have been done. The sons still wouldn't have got the relationship with their father. But the whole point of keeping that is because we has caused so much damage by doing things that we thought was best at the time that caused damage somewhere else. And now they reacted to that damage, and then they caused damage to their father and kept the secret because of the fear of what their father would have did to them had the father found out that they sold away his favorite son.
Yep. Yep. So that's why we said we gotta realize that the end result. You gotta look at the end. You gotta look at the beginning, because there's possibilities of who knows what could happen.
Right. And that's why you say, and as you say, Pastor, that's why it won't be settled in a 30-minute or an hour sitcom. Because
Exactly.
Jacob will have to go back and realize he started the trickle-down effect by having a favorite child, by sending that child to spy on the brothers, by bringing the information back, by giving stuff to the one child that he never did for any other child.
Mm-hmm.
The other children didn't need a coat of many colors, but they needed something comparable to who they are and the characters that they never got.
Yeah. Yeah. Or if not that, take it away from that. They just needed attention.
Right.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
you think about it. You know, let's boil it down to it. You know, you got 3 children. Most of the time when you have 3 children, the one that's in the middle is the one that's never paid any attention to. Why? Because they are in the middle. They're not the youngest. They're not the baby. Or they're not the oldest. They're not the mature one. They're just right there in the middle. And sometimes they are given the scraps. When in actuality, they are the ones that need the attention, because we're naturally going to give attention to the oldest one, and we're naturally going to give attention to the youngest one. But that one in the middle, that's the one that's going to be, you know, felt like a bald-headed stepchild over in the corner with knocked knees. That's what's going to happen. But we should give them all attention, and as Minister Lionel is putting it, not just give our favorite, all right, a coat of many colors. No. If you can't, put it this way, if you can't provide for all of them, don't provide for none of them.
Yes.
If you can't treat them all the same, don't treat them all to anything at all. Because you don't want to, as Minister Lionel put it, you don't want to cause that rift, all right? You don't want to cause that favoritism. You don't even want to have the appearance of it. So with that, we got to look at it. That's why we got to say, not so Brady Bunch. Because as we keep repeating, whatever we do is not going to be fixed in a half-hour sitcom. There's going to be damaging effects sometimes and long-lasting effects. And unfortunately, and I'm done with this unless somebody else has something to add. Unfortunately, depending on what the situation is, depending on who the people are, the situation may never get fixed.
Amen. Amen.
It may never get fixed, especially, you know what? I was about to say, even if the person is unsaved. Let me just flip that, because sometimes you have people that are saved that will not get things straight.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Sometimes, no matter who it is, no matter what's going on, they're going to hold on to it, and they're going to hold it against you. and they're not going to let it go, and they're not going to give or allow the opportunity for it to get straight. All we can do is pray and ask God to intercede and do what needs to be done, because we can't keep telling lies. We can't keep telling sweet little lies, because it's detrimental to our health and it's detrimental to our family. Whether you talk about your physical family or you talk about your church family. So with that much being stated, I don't have anything else to say on tonight. My name is Pastor Lamont Brown. I'm the pastor of Faith Baptist Tabernacle here in Asbury Park, New Jersey, where we are evangelizing to the family while building